Hello, my name is Caroline Mather, and I'm recording this for case study 3. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, but as I do so, um, I will just discuss the fact that we did do this case study was for a client who was older and that the use of CABS, contextually appropriate behavior, was being used. So it was a relatively challenging training process for us as we don't have that many clients that are using this approach. So it involved a lot of discussion. There was written instructions as well as verbal instructions given, and then modeling and role play and everything else. So we went ahead and had these written instructions, as you can see on the screen, where we talked about the data that was collected. The biggest area was identifying the R1 and the R2 behaviors. And then somehow it was very hard for everyone to wrap their head around the fact that R1 behaviors are more aggressive behaviors. And then R2 behaviors are the behaviors that are not aggressive, just whining and crying and whatnot for this kid. Then it went ahead and defined kind of each CAB that we were using and just gave examples of what was going to occur in each one. So this was done and staff was told to review it during that time period. So as far as a BST model, the instructions were given to them and then it was read verbally. They read it themselves and then we kind of went over it as a team during that time period. The nature of CABS is also, while it's not run continuously, it also is typically run by the same people. So being in the clinic, we weren't able to have it be the exact same person for every session since it was a daily situation, but we were able to train up, 3-ish staff members who were able to run this. So it wasn't a big group training that had to occur. We were able to kind of meet on a one-to-one basis and do training from there. So then after the instructions were given, we went ahead and modeled exactly what was going to happen. The first steps were modeling the FCR. So again, the functional communication response, as well as the tolerance response, as this is kind of the starting point for everything else. If we err on this part, it kind of just messes up the whole chain. It's a little bit specific as we aren't just teaching them the FCR and TR, but we're also what we call progressing the EO. So we're standing up, we're clapping, and then we're signaling, okay, we're going to be all done. And that's as we say that, then we are going to prompt the my way response and a fist bump if we're there. So before we even get into what we consider CAB 1, we're teaching these FCR and TR responses. And a lot of our training happened at these initial sessions because the progression happened quickly from learning the FCR and TR to going into CAB 1, which is relinquishing and going on. So the process was somewhat daunting at first, but honestly, within the first sessions, we were able to model and then role play and go from there. The data collection process for the programming was also somewhat problematic, as again, it was somewhat different than what we typically do, which is we aren't looking for them to be 100% accurate and independent with the FCR and TR, but instead we're looking for no problem behavior to occur. So, if there was an R2 behavior or an R1 behavior, then we kind of reset and we're looking for 3 trials in a row of no behavior. So it was a mindset shift in regards to continually reminding them it's not about perfection. It's not about a complete independence. It's about accepting the prompt. It's about not having problem behavior as our benchmark for progressing to the next step. We went into rehearsal then as well. So we practiced with the supervisor after the model occurred, immediately following it. So it's like, okay. And it feels unnatural to do the clap and the stand up and whatnot. So that was it was a good practice with the supervisor to go through these steps. Fake data was used to identify when to move on to the next CAB as well. So putting in data on our CAB sheets that said, independent R1, independent R2, and having them identify whether they were continuing on to the next CAB or if they were remaining in that location or in that CAB. The central reach aspect of it is a little harder as far as auto progression. So it's really just a check and another area for data to be or for instructions to be given. Paper data can get lost really quickly, all the rest of it. So our central reach data isn't as comprehensive as our paper data. but it gave a lot of the instructions again. So after modeling what the cabs looked like and progressing the EO, rehearsal with us occurred, and then rehearsal of how to put the data in and having them actually put in fake data in Central Reach and paper was done during this time as well. So then observation and feedback occurred following all of this. It was a 3-hour session for a client. So for programming purposes, the first hour was just about having the client identify their HRE. So again, happy, relaxed, and engaged. What is happy and relaxed and engaged for that day? What environment are they in? Those kinds of things. So just getting to know their mood for the day, pairing up during that hour. So then during the last 2 hours of the session is when the observation was able to occur, where we observed the progressing of the EO. We watched them progress from the FCR to the TR. Honestly, all the way into CAB 2. Our goal was typically to be in CAB 3 by the end of the first session, but for this learner, CAB 2 was a very reasonable first session goal and what we accomplished during that time. So then we were able to kind of observe during that initial session, those initial sessions, and give feedback immediately following. Okay, like reinforce or go back to HRE here, or I would have identified this as R1 or R2, and just making sure that all of us were on the same page. That quickly goes into the fact that we looked at validity checks. Our biggest opportunity during CABS is the identification of R1 and R2 behaviors, and then when to remove the demand and go back into HRE, and when not to. So the hardest part is that when there's an R2, so a less severe problem behavior, we encourage our staff members to continue on and give some sentences or statements of empathy. I know it's really hard to do work, but we can do it, it's okay. And this follows a kid maybe whining or crying, right? So we want 50% of the time for them to encourage the progression and keep going, or relinquishing the item, or whatever the case might be. And then 50% of the time we're just gonna be like, yeah, it's hard. We can just stay here and do this. This friend likes to watch movies. So a lot of times it's, hey, it's okay. We can just put our movie back on and stay here right now, and just getting them back into HRE. So that 50% is really challenging. So we just wanted to make sure we did continue to progress at some points. And that's where the most errors occurred for us. So the validity checks that we did were related to the identification of R1 and R2. That was done in the moment when we could be like, oh, that was an R1 behavior. That was also done out of context with just practicing it. And then the point of CABS, honestly, or not the point, but one of the big benefits of CABS is that the technician does get to feel in charge and gets to remain in like a safe space, as far as they don't have to progress or deal with major maladaptive behaviors or whatnot. And we want the staff to feel like they have the ability to kind of turn off the behavior and that they're in the driver's seat. So there's a little bit in regards to the validity check of with the staff being consistent, allowing them to somewhat all be on the same page of like, this is where I start to get the behaviors that make me feel unsafe, and I'm going to go back into HRE, versus no, these are precursor behaviors that don't typically escalate into full R1 behaviors. So we took a lot of IOA data in regards to the R1 and R2 behaviors and making sure we were all on the same page, because it can sometimes feel like a covert. If you had a bad session, or the client previously had gone into more aggressive behaviors with you, one staff might be more likely to reinforce sooner or go back into HRE sooner than another staff who hasn't had those experiences. So those were the areas that we really tried to do validity checks on by direct observation, and then just properly defining those R1 and R2 behaviors across the members that were on the team. So those were the big areas for training and validity checks for the CAB sessions. I'm abbreviating a lot of this into kind of a short summary of things. It feels hard to jump from our previous case study to this one. I feel like I'm missing a bunch of information in between, but just for the purpose of being straightforward, I think I've covered my bases in regards to training and how it occurred for this client. Again, my name is Carolyn Mather, and it's November 3rd. And that's it.